Olivia Parker stared at the eviction notice taped to her apartment door, her hands trembling. 3 months behind on rent, her waitressing job barely covered groceries, let alone the mounting medical bills for her younger brother's cancer treatments. At 28, she'd become her 16-year-old brother's only family after their parents died in a car crash last year. Final notice, the paper screamed in bold red letters. 72 hours to come up with $4,500, or find somewhere else to live. Her phone buzzed with a text from the hospital. Reminder, next treatment payment due Friday. Another $3,800 she didn't have. The subway ride to her evening shift at Lumiere, an upscale Manhattan restaurant, felt like a journey through fog. The glittering chandeliers and crisp white tablecloths mocked her desperation as she tied on her apron. "Olivia, there's someone asking for you," her manager said, nodding toward a private dining room. "Mrs. Blackwood, very important client." Eleanor Blackwood sat alone at a table for two, her silver hair immaculately styled, diamonds glittering at her throat. At 65, she commanded the room with the confidence of old money and power. "Please sit," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. "I've been watching you for weeks." Olivia's stomach tightened. "I'm sorry, but I'm working, and I know about your brother's leukemia. I know about your eviction notice. I know you're drowning." Eleanor's voice was matter-of-fact, almost clinical. "I can make it all go away." The room seemed to tilt. "How do you know all this?" "I make it my business to know things, especially about people I might need." Eleanor sipped her wine. "My son, Alexander, was in a terrible accident 3 months ago. He's in a persistent vegetative state." Olivia blinked, unsure where this was going. "I'm sorry to hear that. His business partners are circling like vultures. They're trying to prove he's incapacitated so they can take control of his company, Blackwood Technologies. Perhaps you've heard of it?" Everyone had heard of Blackwood Technologies, the multi-billion-dollar tech empire. If Alexander had a wife with medical power of attorney, these complications would disappear. Eleanor's eyes locked with Olivia's. "I'm prepared to offer you $5 million to marry my son." Olivia nearly choked. "Marry your comatose son? That's unusual, yes, but not illegal. A ceremony would be private, with a judge trust. You'd live in Alexander's penthouse, be seen visiting him at the private hospital wing, and make medical decisions under my guidance." Eleanor slid a business card across the table. "Your brother's medical bills would be covered in full. The best specialists in the country. And when Alexander eventually passes, because let's be realistic, the prognosis isn't good, you'll receive the money and move on with your life." "You want me to marry a man I've never met? Who can't consent?" Olivia felt sick. "I want to protect my son and his legacy." Eleanor stood, smoothing her designer suit. "You have until tomorrow to decide. After that, I'll find someone else who understands opportunity when it knocks." After Eleanor left, Olivia sat frozen, the business card burning in her palm like a ticket to salvation or damnation. She wasn't sure. 40-8 hours later, Olivia stood in a sterile hospital room that had been hastily decorated with white roses and silk ribbons. A judge in a dark suit waited beside a hospital bed where Alexander Blackwood lay still as death, kept alive by machines that beeped softly in the background. He was strikingly handsome even in his unconscious state-strong jawline, thick dark hair now neatly trimmed, and long eyelashes that would never flutter open to see the woman becoming his wife. According to the doctor's chart, he was 34, just 6 years older than Olivia. "This is wrong," Olivia whispered as Eleanor adjusted the simple white dress she'd purchased for the occasion. "This is survival," Eleanor replied coldly. "Your brother started his new treatment this morning, did he not?" "At Memorial Sloan Kettering, with Dr. Matthews, the best oncologist on the East Coast." Olivia swallowed hard. She'd visited Tyler that morning, watching hope fill his eyes for the first time in months. Yes, then say your vows, sign the papers, and everyone gets what they need. The ceremony was brief, surreal. Olivia's voice trembled as she promised to love, honor, and cherish a man who couldn't hear her. When she slipped the platinum band onto Alexander's limp finger, a tear escaped despite her best efforts. After the judge left, Eleanor handed Olivia a thick folder. Your new identity credit cards, keys to the penthouse, and Alexander's medical information. The staff has been informed that you were dating secretly before the accident. Any questions will be directed to me. Eleanor paused, studying Olivia with calculating eyes. You'll need to visit daily. Talk to him. Read to him. The nurses will report everything back to me. What if someone recognizes me? Realizes this is all fake? You were a waitress, dear. The people in Alexander's world don't see people like you. Eleanor's smile was razor sharp. Besides, grief changes people. You're simply the devastated new wife, maintaining a brave face while caring for your beloved husband. That night, Olivia entered Alexander's penthouse overlooking Central Park, a glass and steel monument to wealth and taste. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a glittering Manhattan skyline. Priceless art adorned the walls, and a baby grand piano stood silently in the corner dot in the master bedroom. She found designer clothes in her size, filling half the massive walk-in closet. Eleanor had thought of everything. Olivia sank onto the edge of the king-sized bed, burying her face in her hands. What have I done? Curiosity eventually drove her to Alexander's home office. Photos revealed a life of privileged Alexander skiing in Switzerland, sailing in Greece, shaking hands with tech industry giants and politicians. In every image, his smile seemed genuine, but his eyes held a hint of sadness. On his desk sat a half-finished letter, the handwriting strong and deliberate. Mother, I've considered your ultimatum, and I cannot in good conscience continue with the letter ended there, interrupted by whatever had happened next. Olivia touched the paper gently, wondering what ultimatum he'd been responding to, and what accident had silenced him mid-sentence. Her phone buzzed, with a text from Eleanor. First board meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Wear the blue suit hanging in your closet. Say nothing. Just be present as Alexander's devoted wife. Olivia stared at the message, realizing she'd sold herself into a gilded cage of lies. But when she checked her bank account and saw Tyler's medical bills marked paid in full, she knew there was no turning back. 2 weeks into her charade, Olivia settled into a routine. Mornings at board meetings where men in expensive suits eyed her with suspicion. Afternoons at the hospital, maintaining the fiction of the devoted wife. Evenings researching Alexander's company, trying to understand the empire she was unwittingly helping to protect. Today, Olivia sat beside Alexander's bed, reading aloud from the Great Gatsby, a book she'd found on his knitstand at home, dog-eared and well-loved. The private hospital suite was a temple of luxury, fresh flowers delivered daily, original artwork on the walls, a view of the Manhattan skyline that most people would kill for. You would have been a romantic, she mused, studying his still face. Reading Fitzgerald, keeping your mother at arm's length. Over the days, she'd found herself talking to him more naturally, as if he might actually hear her. It was less lonely that way. The door opened and Dr. Whitman, Alexander's neurologist, entered. His face registered surprise at finding her there. Double quotes, Mrs. Blackwood, I didn't expect you at this hour. Please, call me Olivia, she reminded him. And I've decided to extend my visits. The research suggests coma patients may respond to familiar voices. Dr. Whitman nodded, though something in his expression seemed guarded. Actually, I'm glad you're here. We've detected some unusual brain activity in the latest scans. Olivia's heart skipped. What kind of activity? It's subtle, but there are response patterns when certain voices are present in the room. He hesitated. particularly yours. Does that mean he could be waking up? It's too soon to say. Brain injuries are complex. He checked Alexander's vitals with practiced efficiency. Mrs. Blackwood Eleanor has asked that we maintain current protocols. No experimental treatments. Olivia frowned. But if there's a chance, Eleanor has been very clear about her son's care. His tone was final, professional. After the doctor left, Olivia leaned closer to Alexander. Can you really hear me? She whispered. If you can, I need you to know I'm not who they think I am. But I promise I'll help you if I can. To her shock, Alexander's finger twitched against her hand. So slight, she might have imagined it, except it happened again when she squeezed his hand and whispered, Do that again if you can hear me. Trembling, Olivia pressed the call button. When Dr. Whitman returned, she demonstrated the response. But Alexander remained still. Sometimes involuntary movements can give false hope, Dr. Whitman said gently. I wouldn't mention this to Eleanor. She's fragile about false hope. That evening, Olivia was summoned to Eleanor's mansion on the Upper East Side. The cold opulence of marble floors and museum-quality art made the place feel more like a mausoleum than a home. Eleanor sat in a leather wingback chair, a glass of scotch in hand. The board is getting restless. They're questioning the marriage, your sudden appearance in Alexander's life. You said they wouldn't look too closely, Olivia countered. They wouldn't if you were playing your part convincingly. Eleanor's voice sharpened. Richard Mason Alexander's CFO has been asking questions. He visited the hospital when you were there yesterday. I'm doing everything you asked. Eleanor studied her for a long moment. There's something else. Dr. Whitman says you've been asking about experimental treatments. If there's a chance, Alexander could improve. There is no chance. Eleanor's voice was like ice. The treatments would only prolong the inevitable and drain company resources needed elsewhere. He's your son, Olivia said, disbelief coloring her words. And I'm making the hard decisions he can no longer make. Eleanor set down her glass. Remember our arrangement, Olivia. You're the grieving wife, nothing more. Anything beyond that role could jeopardize your brother's care. The threat hung in the air between them. As Olivia left, she passed a study door left slightly ajar. Inside, she glimpsed Richard Mason in deep conversation with Eleanor, their heads bent together over documents bearing the Blackwood Technologies logo. That night, back at the penthouse, Olivia accessed Alexander's laptop with the password she'd found scribbled in his bedside drawer. What she discovered made her blood run cold. Emails suggesting Eleanor and Richard had been secretly selling company patents to competitors months before. Alexander's accident. The hospital corridor was eerily quiet at 2 a.m. Olivia used the key card Eleanor had given her, slipping into Alexander's private suite, where only the soft beeping of monitors broke the silence. She'd spent the past 3 days combing through his emails, connecting dots that painted a disturbing picture. Alexander had discovered the patent theft. His last sent email the day of his accident was to his lawyer, scheduling an urgent meeting. The half-finished letter on his desk had been addressed to Eleanor, confronting her betrayal. It wasn't an accident, was it? Olivia whispered, taking Alexander's hand in hers. You discovered what they were doing, and something happened to silence you. She placed her laptop on the bedside table and opened a recording app. I need to document everything in case something happens to me, too. Her voice was steady despite her fear. Your mother made me your wife to control the company while keeping you alive, but voiceless. But I think you can hear me, and I think you can fight back. For an hour, she detailed everything she'd found, the secret meetings, the offshore accounts where patent sale money was being funneled, the timing of Alexander's accident right as he was preparing to expose them. I've copied all the evidence and sent it to a secure email that only I can access, she continued. I've also scheduled a meeting with Janet Cooper your external legal counsel, for tomorrow." As she spoke, the monitors tracking Alexander's brain activity showed increasing spikes. Encouraged, Olivia squeezed his hand tighter. "I need you to show them you're still here, Alexander. I can't fight them alone." As if in response, his finger moved against her palm, not just a twitch this time, but a deliberate pressure. Olivia gasped. "Do it again," she whispered urgently. "Please." Alexander's finger moved again, then again. One press, two presses. The medical monitors began showing elevated heart rate and brain activity. Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she reached for the call button, but before she could press it, the door swung open. Eleanor stood there, her face a mask of cold fury, Richard Mason at her side. "I had security alert me to any after-hours visits," Eleanor said, stepping into the room. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" "He's responding," Olivia said, refusing to release Alexander's hand. "He can hear us. He's fighting to communicate." Eleanor's laugh was brittle, the desperate imagination of a gold digger who's outlived her usefulness. "I know what you did," Olivia said, her voice gaining strength. "I found the emails, the offshore accounts. I know you've been selling his patents behind his back, and I know he discovered it right before his accident." Richard stepped forward, his face darkening. "You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I?" The night before Alexander's car crashed, he emailed his lawyer about corporate espionage. The brakes that failed on his car were serviced just days before by a mechanic who received a $50,000 deposit the next day. Eleanor's composure faltered momentarily. "You've been quite busy playing detective in a house that isn't yours, with resources you don't deserve." "I've documented everything," Olivia countered. "If anything happens to me or to Alexander, multiple people will receive all the evidence." Eleanor nodded to Richard, who pulled out his phone. "Security, we need assistance in Mr. Blackwood's room. His wife is having a mental breakdown." Panic flooded Olivia. She lunged for her laptop, but Richard was faster, snatching it away. "No one will believe you," Eleanor said, her voice almost pitying. "A waitress who manipulated her way into marrying my comatose son. The board already thinks you're unstable. By morning, you'll be removed as Alexander's wife and power of attorney. The judge who performed your marriage is an old friend who understands discretion. You can't just erase me," Olivia protested. "Can't I?" Eleanor smiled thinly. "Your brother's treatment will continue. I'm not a monster, but you'll be escorted from the penthouse tonight. Sign the annulment papers, and this unfortunate chapter ends quietly." As they spoke, neither noticed the increasing activity on Alexander's monitors, nor the slight movement of his eyelids. It wasn't until a raspy voice broke through the tension that all three froze in shock. "Mother ... Alexander's voice was barely audible, his eyes struggling to open. "Stop." The room plunged into stunned silence. Alexander's eyes were open, unfocused, but unmistakably conscious as he struggled to form words. "Doctor." Eleanor recovered first, her voice shrill as she lunged for the call button. "We need Dr. Whitman immediately." Olivia moved closer to Alexander, squeezing his hand. "I'm here," she whispered. "You're safe." His fingers weakly returned the pressure as his gaze struggled to find her face. "Her ... double quotes," he managed, each word a battle against months of silence. Dr. Whitman burst into the room, followed by two nurses. "Everyone out," he ordered, already checking Alexander's vitals. "I need space to assess the patient." "I'm staying," Eleanor insisted, her voice steel beneath the maternal concern. "Me too," Olivia said firmly, refusing to release Alexander's hand. "I'm his wife." Alexander's eyes darted between the two women, confusion evident as he tried to piece together what was happening. "Fine, but stand back," Dr. Whitman conceded, beginning a rapid series of neurological tests. "Alexander, can you hear me?" Blink once for yes. Alexander blinked deliberately. Then his gaze found Olivia again. You ... real? He rasped. Before Olivia could answer, Eleanor stepped forward. Darling, you've been in an accident. You've been unconscious for months. Olivia is a nurse who's been caring for you. Not true, Alexander struggled, his agitation causing monitors to beep in warning. Heard ... everything. Dr. Whitman intervened. He needs to remain calm. This level of consciousness after prolonged coma is extremely unusual. We need to proceed carefully. Of course, Eleanor agreed smoothly. Perhaps it's best if Olivia leaves while we explain things to Alexander. Family only for now. I am family, Olivia countered. And Alexander wants me here. She leaned closer to him. Blink once if you want me to stay. Alexander blinked immediately, his eyes now fixed on Olivia with growing clarity. Dr. Whitman made notes on his tablet. His comprehension seemed intact, which is remarkable. I need to order additional tests immediately. As the doctor stepped aside to give orders to the nursing staff, Richard approached Eleanor, speaking in urgent whispers. Eleanor's face hardened as she glanced at Alexander, whose gaze was now tracking movements with increasing awareness. This changes nothing, Eleanor said to Olivia, her voice low enough that only they could hear. He's confused, disoriented. His memory will be compromised for weeks, possibly months. You're forgetting that coma patients often hear everything happening around them, Olivia replied. He's already said he heard me. Fragments at most. Certainly nothing admissible in any legal proceeding. The standoff was interrupted as Janet Cooper, Alexander's attorney, whom Olivia had contacted, entered the room, looking shocked but composed. I came as soon as I got your message about Alexander, she said to Olivia, before noticing Alexander's conscious state. My God, he's awake. Eleanor's expression turned glacial. Janet, this is hardly the time for business matters. On the contrary, Janet replied, approaching Alexander's bedside. My client appears to be conscious, which changes everything. She turned to Dr. Whitman. Is he capable of understanding his current situation? Initial assessments suggest his cognitive functions are remarkably preserved, though he'll need time to regain full speech capability, Dr. Whitman answered. Janet nodded, then addressed Alexander directly. Alexander, I'm Janet Cooper, your attorney. Do you recognize me? Alexander blinked once, and with visible effort raised 2 fingers. 2 words? Olivia guessed. When he blinked again, she realized. You want to say 2 words? His voice came stronger this time, fueled by determination. Trust ... her. His eyes moved deliberately from Janet to Olivia. The room fell silent again, the implications landing like a thunderclap. Janet turned to Dr. Whitman. I'd like a full medical assessment of Mr. Blackwood's capacity, and I'm requesting hospital security to remain present until further notice. This is absurd, Eleanor protested. My son needs rest, not interrogation. What your son needs, Janet countered firmly, is protection. Olivia contacted me yesterday with disturbing evidence suggesting Alexander's accident may not have been accidental at all. Alexander's monitors spiked again as his gaze locked on his mother. In that moment, despite his weakened state, his eyes revealed everything he remembered. He knew, and he understood exactly what had happened to him. Security, Janet called to the guards who had appeared at the door. Please ensure that Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood and Mr. Richard Mason remain in the hospital until the police arrive. As dawn broke over Manhattan, painting the hospital room in soft golden light, Alexander's fingers remained intertwined with Olivia's, fake wife who had become his unexpected salvation. 3 months after Alexander's awakening, the penthouse overlooking Central Park had transformed from a mausoleum of secrets to a place of healing. Physical therapy equipment now occupied what had once been a formal dining room. The sterile perfection had given way to something more lived in, more real. Alexander sat in a wheelchair by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his body still rebuilding strength, while his mind had recovered with remarkable speed. Beside him, Olivia arranged lunch on a small table, nothing fancy, just sandwiches she'd made herself. The board voted unanimously, Alexander said, his speech now clear though still deliberate. My mother and Richard will face full criminal charges. No corporate settlement, no quiet resolution. Olivia nodded, taking the seat across from him. Are you sure that's what you want? She's still your mother, the woman who arranged to have my car tampered with because I discovered her betrayal? His laugh held no humor. She stopped being my mother the moment she decided her. Control of Blackwood Technologies was worth more than my life. The investigation had revealed the full extent of Eleanor's schemes. When Alexander discovered the patent theft, she had conspired with Richard to stage an accident that would leave Alexander incapacitated but alive. Puppet CEO, whose signature and decisions could be controlled through a compliant wife with power of attorney. What Eleanor hadn't counted on was finding someone like Olivia, someone who couldn't be bought beyond the initial agreement, someone who developed a connection with the silent man whose life she'd been thrust into. Your brother's latest scans look promising, Alexander said, changing the subject to something brighter. Dr. Matthews thinks he might be in full remission by Christmas. Olivia's eyes filled with grateful tears. I still can't believe you've continued his treatment. After everything. You saved my life, Alexander said simply. Making sure Tyler beats cancer is the least I can do. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the easy companionship of two people who had been through extraordinary circumstances together. Though Alexander had been unconscious during their marriage, in many ways he knew Olivia better than anyone. For months she had sat by his bedside, sharing her thoughts, her fears, her hopes, never realizing he could hear every word. The annulment papers came through yesterday, Olivia said finally, setting down her glass. Your lawyer said everything's in order. Once you sign, our marriage officially never happened. Alexander nodded slowly, studying her face. And then what? Then I moved back to my apartment. Tyler's got about 6 more months of treatment, but after that, double quote. She shrugged. Back to real life, I guess. Real life, Alexander echoed. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. What's real? What's not? He wheeled himself around the table until he was beside her. In the months since his awakening, they had developed a friendship built on shared trauma and mutual respect, carefully navigating the bizarre circumstance of having been legally married while one of them was comatose. You know, I heard everything while I was under, he said softly. Every book you read to me, every confession, every moment you treated me like a person rather than a body in a bed. You gave me something to fight for. Olivia felt her cheeks warm. I just did what anyone would do. No, Alexander said firmly. What anyone would do is take the money and play the role. You risked everything to find the truth and fight for a man you'd never even met. He reached for her hand, his grip now strong where once it had been a bare whisper of movement. I've been thinking about the day you cried. A single tear that fell on my hand while you were reading to me. That was the first moment I truly fought to wake up, not because of the legal documents binding us, but because I wanted to comfort the woman who cried for me. Olivia remembered that day. She'd been reading The Great Gatsby, the part where Gatsby reaches for the green light, so close yet impossibly far away. Our marriage may have been forced, Alexander continued, but what's grown between us since? That's been entirely real. He produced a small velvet box from his pocket. I'm not asking you to marry me again, at least not yet. That would be too strange, even for us. His smile was warm, genuine. But I am asking you to stay. Not as my nurse or my fake wife or out of obligation, but because I think what we have might be worth exploring once we're both truly free. Inside, the box wasn't a ring but a key, not the one Eleanor had given her to the penthouse. It's to a house in Connecticut, Alexander explained. Small, by a lake. Somewhere we could go on weekends. Somewhere with no history or baggage. Somewhere to start fresh, if you want to. Tears filled Olivia's eyes again. But unlike the desperate tears she'd shed by his hospital bed months ago, these were tears of possibility, of hope. I'd like that, she whispered, taking the key. A new beginning. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall over Manhattan, covering the city in a clean, white blanket, nature's way of saying that even the darkest stories can have fresh starts, and that sometimes the most genuine love grows from the most unusual circumstances. To beginnings, Alexander said, raising his glass to hers. To tears that change fate, Olivia replied, the afternoon sun catching the moisture in her eyes, turning ordinary tears into prisons of light and promise.